أهلا بكم. منذ العام 2005 لم يقم مسؤول أممي رسمي بزيارة الصين. اليوم ثمة زيارة مرتقبة إلى شينجيانغ للمفوضة السامية لحقوق الإنسان ميشيل باشليت بدأ التفاوض بشأنها بين مكتبها من جهة والحكومة الصينية من جهة ثانية، وذلك منذ أكثر من سنتين. وكانت ميشيل باشليت قالت في مارس الماضي إن المفاوضات أسفرت عن اتفاق حول المعايير التي تحترم منهجية الأمم المتحدة، بما في ذلك الوصول غير المقيد إلى مجموعة واسعة من الجهات الفاعلة وضمنهم المجتمع المدني. لكن الجهات الصينية وضعت الزيارة في إطار تعزيز التعاون وفق المتحدث باسم وزارة الخارجية الصينية، الذي قال إن بكين لطالما عارضت استخدام تلك المسألة تجنبا للتلاعب السياسي. ففي أي ظروف تتم تلك الزيارة؟ هل تتمكن ميشيل باشليت من زيارة الأماكن الحساسة فعلا مثل شينجيانغ والتيبت؟ هل تتمكن أيضا من مقابلة من تريد؟ أو أن الزيارة ستكون بمثابة تلميع لصورة الصين أمام المجتمع الدولي؟ الأمم المتحدة أرسلت فريقا إلى الصين مكونا من 5 أعضاء، وذلك استعدادا للتفتيش الذي طال انتظاره من قبل المنظمة الأممية. وفي الوقت الحالي يخضع الوفد أو أعضاء الوفد للحجر الصحي في غوانتو قبل التوجه إلى إقليم شينجيانغ الذي تسيطر عليه الصين بشكل كامل وصارم، وتمنع بالتالي أي محاولة من قبل وسائل الإعلام للوصول إليه، ودائما ما كانت ترفض طلبات الهيئات الدولية مثل الأمم المتحدة لزيارتها.
Her advance team arrived in Guangzhou over the weekend, and they will spend a couple of weeks in quarantine, which flags up one of the first challenges, which is that we are talking about trying to conduct this kind of visit during a pandemic in which there are very strict constraints on travel and mobility, but also on privacy. So we've got the concerns about whether she will actually be able to physically visit regions like the Uyghur region, for example, or Tibetan areas. But also, even if she does, whether she'll be able to speak with people freely and whether they will be willing to talk to her to be able to actually document serious human rights violations. And that's before we even get to the question of whether the Chinese government has any intention of taking recommendations that she might make about serious human rights abuses. And the net result is that this visit runs the risk of actually whitewashing the Chinese government's human rights record rather than providing any relief to people who've been horrifically persecuted.
لكن في المقابل قال المتحدث باسم وزارة الخارجية الصينية أن الغرض من زيارة المفوضة السامية لحقوق الإنسان ميشيل باشليت هو تعزيز التبادلات والتعاون بين الجانبين، وأشار إلى أن بكين لطالما عارضت استخدام تلك المسألة تجنبا للتلاعب السياسي. في ذلك الوقت يتبين أن الغرض من الزيارة بين مختلف الطرفين متعارض، فالأمم المتحدة تضعه في إطار تقصي الحقائق بينما تضعه الصين في إطار تعزيز التبادل والتعاون. إلا أن السؤال الأهم زيارة من ذلك النوع هل يفسدها التحضير لها قبل فترة من حصولها؟
Having an advance team go is actually a fairly standard part of how these kinds of visits are planned and carried out. But that can go both ways in that it can give a government an opportunity to understand more clearly what exactly a visiting official wants to do and therefore put in place the mechanisms to control it. One aspect we're concerned about is that if especially if the COVID constraints are still so tight when she visits, it's possible that she will be physically in China but meeting people via video, which creates enormous risks for people who are speaking to her because there is a digital record and a footprint of those conversations. And that's in some ways just as risky as people actually meeting in person.
إذا في حال تم التحضير لتلك الزيارة، ما نفع مهمة تقصي الحقائق التي تذهب من أجلها المفوضة السامية لحقوق الإنسان فعلا؟ فكل شيء وارد لناحية إمكانية ترتيب الأمور قبل وصولها، وبالتالي يمكن للحزب الشيوعي الصيني أن يخفي ما لا يريده أن يظهر خلال تلك المهمة.
Yeah, it's, fact-finding missions are when they're undertaken in a credible and professional manner, are critical in assembling evidence of, in this case, in our view, crimes against humanity. It's one thing when an organization like mine publishes an assessment. It's an entirely different matter when an intergovernmental body like the United Nations publishes that kind of assessment. And indeed, let's assume, for the purposes of this conversation, that the High Commissioner publishes a report about Chinese government abuses of Uyghurs and other Turkic Muslims, and it's critical, and it comes to conclusions similar to ours, finding crimes against humanity, for example. Those are the kinds of reports that trigger debate and can actually lead to accountability proceedings. I mean, let's be very clear. If any other government in the world had arbitrarily detained 1 million Muslims, I think we would be having a very different conversation right now about how the world would have responded to that. But because it's the Chinese government, it's escaping any sort of accountability for some of the most serious crimes under international law. And this is why it's critical for a part of the United Nations to weigh in, to assemble that evidence, to bring it forward, and to allow for a debate about whether and how to respond. But I think we're watching that system waver in the face of Chinese government pressure. And those are not the standards the UN is meant to play by. And I think that's not the world that people who are concerned about everything from torture to religious freedom want to live in.
صوفي ريتشاردسون اعتبرت أن التحدي أيضا يكمن في أن المنظمة الأممية لا تملك أدلة توحي بأن الحكومة الصينية ستسمح لها بالقيام بالمهمة الاستقصائية كما يجب.
In order for this visit to be credible at this particular moment, the High Commissioner has to be able to go where the serious human rights violations are. She has to be able to go there and speak to people that she wants to speak to, and to be able to talk to them without fear of reprisals or persecution against them for talking to her. And the challenge here is that we see very little evidence to suggest that the Chinese government is actually going to allow that. So it's tough because we have called for an international investigation, but what the Chinese government seems to have agreed to, and what we're concerned the High Commissioner herself has agreed to, is a visit that won't really serve the core purpose of investigating and then providing relief from crimes against humanity.
انتقادات لاذعة لميشيل باشليت حول عدم نشرها التقرير الذي أعده مكتبها. بعد الفاصل. في ظل الحديث عن الزيارة المرتقبة للمفوضة السامية لحقوق الإنسان، تتعرض ميشيل باشليت لانتقادات كثيرة وواسعة لعدم إصدار تقرير أعده مكتبها بشأن انتهاكات حقوق الإنسان في شينجيانغ، وسط تقارير أفادت في وقت سابق من ذلك العام بأن بكين أصرت على عدم نشر ذلك التقرير قبل الألعاب الأولمبية الشتوية في فبراير الفائت. صوفي ريتشاردسون كشفت لأخبار الآن محتوى ذلك التقرير الذي تتحفظ عليه الأمم المتحدة حتى الآن.
This is a report that the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights started working on more than 2 years ago. And it's our understanding that it includes testimony from victims and survivors talking about their own experiences of human rights violations similar to the ones that we've documented: torture, mass arbitrary detention, cultural persecution. We don't know why she hasn't published it. She has promised that she would publish it for several months now, beginning back in September of last year. And then as recently as December 2021, her spokesperson said that it would be published within a matter of weeks. We have heard governments call on her to release it, obviously many civil society groups, and most evocatively, many people in the Uyghur diaspora community worldwide who are gravely concerned about what's happened to their family members have called on her to release it, and indeed are calling on her to try to see or meet with their family members while she is there. So we can really only guess that perhaps her goal is to not irritate the Chinese government. Maybe she'll be more willing to release it after this report or after this visit. Maybe she'll be more willing to release it if the visit winds up not happening. But it is not an encouraging sign to see somebody in that position. This is the world's leading human rights diplomat, not place the victims and their needs at the absolute center of her work.
تستبعد ريتشاردسون أن يتم نشر التقرير قبل زيارة ميشيل باشليت المرتقبة إلى الصين، واعتبرت أن عدم نشر ذلك التقرير أمر خاطئ للغاية، وقالت إن ذلك ليس فقط ضربة كارثية للمجتمع الإيغوري ككل، بل ضربة كارثية لنظام الأمم المتحدة لحقوق الإنسان.
It doesn't look like they plan to do that, meaning, I should say it this way, it appears that the High Commissioner will not publish this report ahead of the visit. We think that's a mistake, and that indeed, if she doesn't publish the report, she goes on the visit, it's highly restricted, and she then doesn't really even talk about the ways in which the visit was restricted. This isn't just a catastrophic blow to the Uyghur community and others who've suffered so terribly at the hands of the Chinese government. It's a terrible blow to the UN's human rights system, because it suggests that a very powerful government is able to manipulate that institution as a whole, and that has serious consequences for people all over the world. So for all of the governments who are concerned about any of these related issues, whether it's about mass arbitrary detention, whether it's about Islamophobia, whether it's about torture and suppressions of the freedom of cultural identity, of religion, of belief, of speech, you name it. There are a lot of reasons to care about where and whether and how the Chinese government can be held accountable through these institutions.
ريتشاردسون دعت ميشيل باشليت إلى ضرورة أن تظهر مدى جدية تلك الزيارة من خلال نشر التقرير الأممي، واعتبرت أن ذلك التقرير يوحي إلى منظمة هيومن رايتس ووتش بأن باشليت ليست مستعدة لأن تكون صارمة في التعامل مع حكومة الصين كما يجب وكما توجب الحقائق. وكشفت ريتشاردسون أن باشليت كانت مترددة جدا في التحدث عن موضوع التيبت والقضايا التي تؤثر على الناس هناك، وكانت لديها اتصالات قليلة بالمدافعين عن حقوق الإنسان والمحامين والصحفيين والمناصرين لقضايا المرأة. وتابعت ريتشاردسون حديثها لأخبار الآن أن باشليت لا تملك سجلا واضحا حول زياراتها والقضية التي تمكن طاقمها من تكريس بعض الوقت لها، كما أنه لم تتم مشاركة نتائج ذلك العمل بطريقة تعزز موقفها ومهمتها. ووجهت ريتشاردسون لباشليت انتقادا لاذعا قائلة: الهدف من موقعها هو التوثيق وإحقاق العدل تجاه ضحايا الانتهاكات الإنسانية، وليس إنشاء علاقات جيدة مع الحكومات، وتقصد هنا طبعا حكومة الصين. فاصل قصير ونواصل هذه الحلقة. مشاهدي أخبار الآن ابقوا معنا. في إطار الحديث عن انتهاكات حقوق الإنسان بحق أقلية الإيغور من قبل الحزب الشيوعي الصيني، لابد من القول إن جميعنا بات يعرف حجم معاناة الأقلية التي تعيش في جحيم طيلة أيام السنة. لكن ماذا تعرفون عن معاناة تلك الأقلية في شهر رمضان تحديدا؟ كيف أمضت تلك الأقلية ذلك الشهر؟ ما الذي ترغم على فعله وما الذي تمنع عنه؟ الناشط الإيغوري يروي لأخبار الآن، طبعا عبد الوالي أيوب يروي لأخبار الآن تفاصيل حادثة الصيام الأليمة داخل معتقلات شينجيانغ في الصين والتي كان جزءا منها.
The guy just stubbed the electric stick to his stomach like this, and then he fell down. And I found out that he vomited the medicine he took in the morning.
في إطار الحديث عن منع الصين أقلية الإيغور من ممارسة الشعائر الدينية لا سيما الصيام في شهر رمضان، يروي الناشط الإيغوري عبد الوالي أيوب لأخبار الآن قصة حصلت في أحد معتقلات شينجيانغ حيث كان شاهدا عليها، لا بل كان جزءا منها. كان ذلك في العام 2014. آنذاك كان أيوب في المعتقل وكان مجبرا على تنفيذ الأوامر كأي معتقل آخر، لكنه في ذلك النهار خالف التعليمات. قبل بداية شهر رمضان في ذلك العام أتى حارس وأبلغهم أن رمضان يبدأ في اليوم التالي ومن يصوم سيدفع الثمن.
The morning, at the time I was on duty because everyone should have duty for 2 hours. Deprived sleeping, you have to stand 2 hours for nothing, just 2 hours like deprived you're sleeping. When I was standing there, I saw that there is a guy, a Uyghur guy, who get up, and then he drink water. It's about 3 o'clock, and then he just wash their face just once, and then go to sleep. In the morning, about 10 o'clock, the prison guard came and he asked me, "Have you seen anybody fasted this morning?" I said, "No, I haven't seen anybody fasted. No, nothing happened." And he said, "But I know someone fasted." I don't know, like I haven't seen anybody fasted that. And he said that I'm going to show you. He just used his electric stick because we are just lining up there, like lining up, and he just showed the electric stick and just touched the electric stick to the like stomach of the mug of that like prisoner. His name is Ali. Just touched the electric stick, and then he shouted, and then the guy just stubbed the electric stick to his stomach like this, and then he fell down. And I found out that he vomited the medicine he took in the morning. And the prison guard told me that, look, he keep that medicine in the morning. He didn't, like every morning we have to drink some medicine, we have to take some medicine. I couldn't find that. He didn't, he just keep that medicine in his mouth.
كل صباح كان يتعين على المعتقلين تناول دواء معين. لم يكن عبد الوالي يعرف أن زميله كان يبقي الدواء في فمه من دون أن يبتلعه تجنبا لإفساد صيامه.
And after he just hit his like stomach and he vomited all like medicine, the prison guard told me, look, you said you don't know, you said you haven't seen, but this is the medicine he took in the morning and he didn't like swallow. I found out that, and in the morning he drank the water and he fasted. You have seen it, but you didn't report it to us. And it's your response. And then send him to like solitary confinement. Solitary confinement means the roof is very like low, like your head, and you have to sit on like a tiger chair, like neck and like your wrist and your like feet chained like this. And he sent to like solitary confinement, and because of I didn't report at the time. Like I don't know, like he just handcuffed my hands, and he put my hands and put my feet together like this way, and then put me in another like punishment. There is a cell specially punished for those people who are not like follow the instruction, and put me that place, and I like my feet and like my hands connected like this. I stayed 7 days because of I haven't reported his fasting.
يقول عبد الوالي إن الصعوبة تكمن أيضا في ضرورة تناول الفطائر الصينية أحيانا، وأحيانا أخرى حساء الملفوف الصيني. لكن في شهر رمضان يجب على السجين تناول تلك الفطائر من دون أن يسأل لماذا يقدم له ذلك الطعام فجأة في شهر رمضان بالتحديد. وكان المعتقلون يطلقون على تلك الفطائر تسمية الفطائر السياسية لأنها تفرض عليهم.
The hard part is what are you doing, and you don't know what are you doing, and you don't know what are you eating, and it is really hard, and it is test your like I think they are testing our like belief, because when you are eating, like if you vomit or if you like feel uncomfortable, because the street camera watching you 24 hours, they can see what's going on. They can like they took me to the that monitoring room. I have seen the screens. They can even see your one fur on your face. They can even see that. Like they can make it bigger, and they can record your voice. What are you talking about? And like those camera take video every moment of you like this.
ما تم تقديمه قصة واحدة من ملايين القصص التي حصلت وما زالت تحصل في معتقلات شينجيانغ الواسعة، والقصص بالتأكيد تتوالى بانتظار تحريك ساكن بناء على شهادات حية من ناجين وروايات عن آخرين ينتظرون الخلاص.
اليوم ثمة اختراط للإيغور بعدم الصيام وإلا الثمن غال.
Depending on the like Chinese university websites, like there are notification that Uyghur students should go to political study in the evening, and in the morning they have to go to Chinese flag raising ceremony, and during the flag raising ceremony they have to eat. Like the flag raising ceremony is at 10 o'clock. They have to drink and they have to eat during the flag raising ceremony. And every week, those students, they have to write a confession letter that my parents fasted during the Ramadan because of their religious practice. And I influenced, and I regret to see it. I regret not to stop it. And I have to confess that, and I grew up in that circumstances, in that situation, and I need to clean my ideology from those like infectious like Islamic idea. And this is for like university students, and for boarding school, and Chinese teachers ask them to drink and eat 3 meals with them. Like other times they can eat like with the students, but this time there must be a teacher watch them when they are eating, and they just prevent them, just stop them to like fast secretly.
كان هذا كل شيء ودائما إلى اللقاء.